Hi there folks, welcome back to the IB and Andy Fishing channel. I hope you're doing really well and welcome back to another review here on the channel, and this time it is one of the absolute iconic rod ranges of the 20th and now 21st century. We are having a really close look at the Orvis Superfine in the new graphite edition they've launched this year. If you've been around fly fishing for a while now, you'll be well aware of the Orvis Superfine series. This is a range that dates back to, oh crikey, the 50s, 60s. I'm pretty sure some of the first graphite rods that came out of America were the Orvis Superfine Graphite range, so there's a huge amount of heritage with these. It's a rod range that's sort of been in and out of their ranges ever since. A couple of years previous to this, they've sort of disappeared, but Orvis have re-released them with the Helios technology for 2025 and onwards, and we've been checking out the 7'6" 3-weight version for the last few months. First things first, we get straight into this one. Really nice, cool looking Cordura tube, very classic sort of colours on there, quite muted, very slim, rock solid. Chuck that in bag, no problem at all. That'll be aircraft safe, no doubt about it. Really cool rod bag on this, really classy rod bag, really nice materials, high quality, with the little plastic clip, just like they did on the Helios range. I just wonder if that could have been a slightly more appropriate colour for the rod bag other than the black, but we'd skip past that. Really cool pattern on there, sort of hints at the heritage of the rod range. I'm pretty sure that's partridge and trout on there. It could be any generic game bird, but yeah, it looks really nice. But again, we're not going to wax too much about the rod bag, because we need to get on with having a look at this little bit of kit. So this is it as it comes. This is the new Superfine Graphite 7.5 foot 3-weight. This is the tippet model, and you can tell that from the fact that it's laser engraved onto the butt cap there. Now there are 5 different models. I think this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 weight that sort of echoes the original Superfine. All the rods have different names. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but again, little hint of the heritage. That's quite nice. A couple of features on there that you might not expect, 2 in particular that stood out to me straight away as soon as I took this out of the tube. 2 things here that I wasn't expecting to see, the first of which was a screw down reel seat. I sort of assumed that with this being a heritage range, with this being a sort of old school range, I sort of assumed that'd be a sliding band rather than an uplocking screw reel seat. I'll be honest, from personal preference, having grown up fishing rods that were sliding band reel seats, I much prefer this. It's a lot more secure. It's a lot more likely to keep that reel in place. You don't have to worry about that sliding band coming loose, and they can do every now and again. So for me, even though possibly not what you might expect, actually I prefer that screw reel seat. It's a lot more secure. Up above that, the insert there is slightly hardened cork rather than being a wood. It's going to save you a little bit of weight. It sort of fits in with the aesthetic of the rod. I think that's pretty cool. It's got the model number down there as well, sort of specific model number, so if you've got any warranty issues, that's what you've got to look to. So a nice little touch there. That cork looks right on the rod, I think. And on the subject of cork, we come up a little bit and we have got a proper little cigar handle there. Really beautiful quality cork, nicely shaped, fits nicely in my hand. IB said exactly the same thing. It just feels nice in the hand. Top quality cork, really good. It looks like the same sort of cork they used on the Helios range that we reviewed late last year. So again, I think that's absolutely spot on, really in keeping with the type of rod that you're looking at here. The second feature that I wasn't expecting on this range of rods is well, it's not quite white like it is on the Helios. This is more sort of a, I don't know what we call it, eggshell cream, something like that, down at the bottom of the blank here. Given the sort of furore that Orvis have caused around having that white branded on the Helioses, I wasn't expecting to see this. I thought they might go for something a little bit more subtle. That said, it is a little bit more subtle than the Helios branding, but only a little bit. On there, you've got really nice classic handwritten branding on there. Nothing too flash, nothing too in your face in terms of the branding here. Orvis Superfine Graphite, 3-weight, 7'6". That is it. Really classy looking. I like the fact that they've muted the white down a little bit into that nice sort of creamy colour. Looks the part. It is, of course, a 4-piece rod, like most rods are these days. Down at the bottom of the third section, we've got a chrome stripper guide. Just a single layer, you don't need anything more than a single stripper guide on these. And then above that, we've got hard chrome snakes going right the way through to the very tip of the rod. Whipping down those snakes, we have got some really classic black whippings. Nothing too fancy here, quite minimal. Sort of in fitting with the blank, which is a ground down matte finish blank rather than being anything too glossy. Again, for me, that sort of fits the vibe, sort of fits the image of the rod. There are some little section alignment dots on the way up there, so you can put the thing together right, but they've actually kept it fairly minimal. And for me, for this type of rod, that's about spot on. And on the subject of the carbon, as I've already touched on, Orvis sort of hint that the carbon on this thing is based around the Helios models. And it sort of feels like that. I'll get onto this in a little bit, but just in the hand straight away, it sort of felt very similar. You can definitely draw parallels in terms of how this performs between this and the latest iteration of the Helios. But as I say, we'll get onto that. One thing you would expect from a rod like this at 7.5 foot through a free weight, with it being called superfine, is that it's going to be relatively light, and at 46 grams it is exactly that. It's a lovely light stick. If you're fishing smaller streams, if you're doing the little stream stuff, if you prefer the smaller rods rather than the longer stuff, this is going to feel very, very familiar. Orvis do say in their blurb that they've used a slightly lower modulus graphite in this than they have on the Helios ranges, just to sort of mute down the actions of these rods slightly to something that's more moderate or slow, something that's going to be a bit more relevant for your small stream angler. You sort of get a vibe straight away from this rod that this is a real blend of sort of the old and the new. That lovely cigar grip, the cork insert, the classically hand-finished, handwritten pieces down here. And then, as I say, black anodization on the reel seat. You've got that sort of almost white Helios branding on there. You can see what Orvis are going for. They're trying to bring the Superfine into the 21st century. I, however, have been bringing the Orvis Superfine mostly down to my favourite small streams for the last few months, and I just want to throw in a very quick thank you to Orvis UK here. We were hoping to have got this review done quite a long time ago, but as many of you in the UK will know, we've had a terrible drought this spring, and most of the blue lines and the small streams that I usually favour to fish at this time of year, a lot of them have dried up or are close to drying up. So we've had to keep hold of it a little bit longer just so I can fish some of the other venues with it. So thank you to Orvis UK, we appreciate that. I will get this back in the post to you as soon as I've finished this video. So I've spent a good few months fishing with it now. I've fished for Grayling, I've fished for trout, I've used the duo, I've used dry fly. I've fished 4 or 5 different venues. I've got to know this rod pretty well. So in terms of fishing it, I'm going to be able to give you guys a good idea of what's going on with the new Superfine Graphite. So I remember when this first arrived to the house, I got it out of the box, got it out of the tube, I put it together, gave it a quick waggle in the house and thought to myself, I'm not quite sure this is the action I was expecting from the Orvis Superfine. So I've worked in shops that sold the old Superfines. So this doesn't quite feel how I thought it was going to feel. It's perhaps a little bit stiffer than I thought. I wasn't quite sure. And actually thinking about it, I think I said something similar about the Helios as well. Maybe there's something about this graphite that just doesn't pass the shot waggle test. But I put it together and I was like, no, this feels stiff. It feels a lot stiffer than I thought it was going to be. So straight away there, I was sort of on the back foot with this rod a little bit. I wasn't really sure, but I was really looking forward to lining it up. And my first session was actually out fishing the duo for some Grayling on a local small stream. And I put a line through it and I cast it a couple of times and just immediately it came to life. It was fascinating how different it felt all of a sudden. Once it had a bit of line through it, once it had a little bit of weight behind it, that carbon just came to life. Immediate feedback, immediate flex, it felt super accurate. It was a real head turner, this thing, it was a complete surprise. I wasn't expecting to like this in the first use as much as I did when I first took it out during the winter Grayling fishing. It's actually quite an interesting challenge for a rod like this because you sort of associate a 7'6" weight with perhaps your shorter range dry fly fishing and picking stuff off the surface and everything being quite light and delicate. But actually the duo fishing is often using quite big duo dry flies and then suspending a nymph under it. It might have 2.5 or 3mm tungsten bead underneath it, which probably isn't what this rod was designed for. And there was a little bit of a worry there that possibly a rod like this might crumble under that sort of pressure. It really didn't. It was a real shock. And straight away, even before I'd ever fished a dry fly on this rod, I was immediately aware that it had a little bit more about it than I anticipated it was going to. What that was a great test of though, is being able to fish this with 7X. And that's what I was doing during the Grayling fishing. I was fishing with really light tippet. I wanted to test this out, I was a little bit worried, was it going to be a bit too much? So I fished it with light tippet and straight away, plain fish, I just knew there was going to be no issue. It's lovely and delicate, it's lovely and soft. It cushions those fish beautifully. So even if you're just fishing for Grayling or mostly fishing small streams for softmouth fish like Grayling, absolutely spot on. You're going to have no problems at all with this thing landing those fish. The true test of the Orvis Superfine Graphite though was always going to be those dry fly sessions on the trout streams once the trout seasons come back around, and I have had an absolute blast with this thing. I always think with a small stream rod, you're looking for probably slightly different qualities than you're looking for from perhaps a longer rod, perhaps a 9'4" weight, a more conventional dry fly rod. This thing doesn't need to be particularly graceful necessarily, it just needs to be accurate. You're going to be making funky casts here off the wrong shoulder or under that bush there, or can we make a weird roll cast that way? And you've got to be confident that that thing is just going to go in the direction you want it to. Perhaps not quite as necessary with a longer rod where you might have a bit more space to play with. It doesn't need to be pinpoint accurate. With these things it often does, because if you're not pinpoint accurate, you're in that tree, or you're in that grass, or you're a foot short, or you're a foot long. And in those small streams where those fish have got a small window to feed in, that's really, really important. And I was immediately struck with this thing about just how accurate it was for that dry fly fishing. A rod like this is always going to have to load with less than 30 feet of fly line out. It's got to load early, it's got to load pretty quickly. You need that feedback and feel really to be able to fish those streams properly. And this has got that by the ton. Loads of feedback, loads of feel. Always feel like you're compressing it, even at very short ranges. Both roll casts and overheads, always bags of feel, never any issue loading this thing. You're always getting some feedback from it. Always felt like it was going in the right direction. And actually, similarly to the Helios 4 that we reviewed, as you go a little bit longer with the casts on this, it actually feels like it's got a little bit more to give as well, and that was a nice surprise. A couple of times where I fished slightly longer, you know, you've got to get that cast underneath that tunnel of trees and you can't get any closer because it's too deep or you're going to spook your fish. Once you did have to go out to normal fishing ranges, it felt like it still had a little bit to give. In truth, there was never a point where I thought I'd asked too much of this rod. I've not fished it on any big rivers, but I sort of get the feeling up to maybe 40-50 feet, this thing would be absolutely fine. In fact, if there's one area where I feel like Orvis have maybe got the marketing on this wrong a little bit, is that they've really gone heavy on the fact that it's quite a slow action. And I don't particularly agree with that. I grew up fishing with cane and fiberglass. I grew up fishing slow action fly rods. For me, this is not a slow action at all. It's certainly not a fast or even a fast medium, but compared to some older fiberglass rods or something like that, I don't think this is a particularly slow rod. It does bend deep, don't get me wrong, particularly when you're playing fish, but slow, no, not necessarily. It was a little bit faster than I thought it was going to be. So I'd say actually the action of the Superfine here probably suited me better than the fiberglass rod that I usually use for fishing those small streams. I found it very intuitive, very, very easy to get on with. It sort of instantly just made sense in a way that perhaps I wasn't expecting. I thought this was going to be a slightly slower, slightly deeper action than it is. Don't get me wrong, if you bend it properly, if you really give it some, you'll bend it right through, but actually for the ranges that you're going to be fishing at with something like this, no, I didn't think it was anywhere near as slow as Orvis have made out. I thought this was a proper medium action fly rod that you could do everything with. You can fish it short, you can fish it a little bit longer, you can fish all different sizes of fish. And yeah, it didn't really seem to be running out of power or energy at any point. It always sort of behaved. The other quick heads up I want to give this thing, and I'm going to pick up the tip section for this one, is durability, because I will say there were a couple of times while I was out fishing the duo for the Grayling where I gave this a proper whack with a tungsten bead, and I'm going to apologise to Orvis UK here. If this breaks after I've sent it back to you, it's probably one of my tungsten beads. I gave this a proper thumping a couple of times with tungsten beads. Do you know when you hit the rod so hard and you go, oh no, I don't even want to look, I don't want to look. Gone through it, can't find any marks, can't find any damage. I've caught a lot of fish with it since then. So not only is it light, not only is it great action, not only is it multi-use, it's also pretty bloody durable. It's taken a bit of a kicking at the end of the Grayling season and stood up to it with flying colours. So I guess then we have to look at what we've got here as an overall package, and I think what we've got here is a rod that is trying the very best to blend what is a really old school kind of heritage area of their brand with the absolute newest and best in fly rod graphite technology. And I think that's quite a difficult thing to do, both from a rod perspective and from the sort of aesthetic of it. I do think down at this end, it's a little bit odd looking. That black anodised reel seat to me sort of really stands out against that cork. Could that have been a different colour? Could it have been a little bit more traditional looking maybe? If I was going to give a slight mark down, maybe down here, I think the cork just above the end of the reel seat here, I think that could have done with some composite or something around it. It looks very vulnerable there. There's no great evidence of anything coming off yet, but it's a very sharp edge that I wouldn't usually associate with a top end rod having such a sharp edge to the cork. So again, maybe could they have just done a little bit there to protect that? Possibly doesn't need it. As I say, nothing's come off in the time that I've had it, but I just look at that and think that looks a little bit unfinished. Quality of the cork, unbelievable. I will say that. Excellent quality cork. Impressed with what they've done up here. Orvis have clearly, they're going to go down this route of having this white section on their rods, so just backing off a touch there with the colours, really clever. Nice classical finish on there, again, real sort of juxtaposition there of the modernness of the Orvis brand and trying to taper it back with that classic look with the hand finished branding just above the handle. So you can see what they're trying to go for here. And I think what they've done actually is created a really, really top small stream fly rod. There are going to be people that have issues with the look of it and know that this is going to be a long-term thing for Orvis. Again, it may well be that in a couple of years they release a range of these that are a little bit more subtle like they did with the old H3s. But in terms of the performance of the rod, absolutely faultless. As I say, it was better than I thought it was going to be at the longer stuff. I think they've over-egged the idea that this is a slow action rod. I don't think it's anywhere near as slow as Orvis have made out. I think this is a great rod at all sorts of ranges you'd expect to fish out with a 7'6" weight. It's not going to cast 90 foot, or you shouldn't be trying to. But sensible fishing ranges, and never found this ran out of gas at all. I will say I was using it with the Orvis Pro Trout Smooth in a weight forward 3. Not a line I know that well, but actually it matched the rod really well. So if you're buying one of these and you're looking something to fish it with, that Pro Trout Smooth and the weight forward 3 was perfect. Really interesting rod this. Great to see something that's got a really iconic background be sort of revved back into life, revived back into the 21st century. As I say, a blend of the real modern and the real heritage. In terms of the rod, it works really well. In terms of the aesthetic, I'll let you guys be the judge of it. I'm not quite sure this end fully makes sense. As I say, there were just little things in there I might have tweaked personally, but this is going to be a personal preference thing. In terms of the quality of the fishing rod, absolutely brilliant. I've loved fishing this thing. As I say, it suits me as a caster down to the ground. And I just think it's one of those rods that most people are going to be able to pick up and just fish instantly. It's incredibly intuitive. As ever with an Orvis USA made rod, and these are finished in Vermont, these are an American made rod, you get that 25-year guarantee with Orvis that pretty much covers you for anything. That they are probably the best on the market when it comes to their guarantee. They're very, very good at this stuff. If this thing breaks for any reason in the next 25 years, they'll replace the section. If they can't replace the section, they'll replace the rod. If they can't replace the rod, they'll replace your rod with a newer model. So you're always going to get that backup for 25 years with Orvis. And to be honest, at the sort of price these things are coming out at, you should really expect that. Because at £639 in the UK, this is not a cheap fishing rod. Those guys who fish smaller streams, you might think, oh crikey, you know, in the small streams I'm more likely to bang it around or anything like that. As I say, durability seems pretty good to me, but if you're looking for a really fabulous, once-in-a-lifetime small stream fishing rod, the Orvis Superfine is back in the game, and they've come back with an absolute banger. Fish it short, fish it long, big fish, small fish, light tippets, go heavier, do what you want with it, because it's done absolutely everything I've thrown at it. I'm going to leave it there, guys. As you probably guessed, I really, really like this rod. A fabulous piece of kit. And if you're in the market for a small stream rod and you've got the sort of cash we're talking about here for a real investment rod, a rod for 25 years, you have got to check these things out. Please do go and give one of these a cast at your local fly shop, because it is a wonderful little rod. Really, really nice. As ever, please do get in the comment section. Let me know if you're an Orvis Superfine user from the past, or if you've bought one of the new ones, because they've been over here for a couple of months now. Let me know your opinions. As ever, we're really interested to hear what you guys have got to say about these reviews, so do get in that comment section and let us know what you think. I think it is a wonderful fishing rod. Thank you very much, you guys, for watching this review. We really appreciate it. IB and I are going to be back with some more fishing, some more reviews, and some more stuff very, very soon. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.